Hi, Karen here, and welcome to the second installment on how to improve on your public speaking skills.
Thank you so much. I gotta go. Bye.
Today is all about the voice. Public speaking is up there with one of the greatest fears of life. The reality is that companies, organizations will keep pushing the people that can speak well in public in the front, and possibly you could be left behind, even if you're doing a better job than everybody else. It's a really simple formula. The more that you do, the better you get at it.
It costs you gave them treatment early.
But that also is really encouraging because that means it's a skill, and that means it can be learned.
Dear whispered by slaves and abolitionists, that spirit sung by immigrants and homesteaders.
The very first thing you have to be conscious of is your voice projection. So make sure that your voice projects right to the back to make sure all of your audience can hear you. This is my audience today. When I go to hear public speakers, this is one of the big tells that someone is not confident. What they have to say could be amazing.
I ate my twin in the womb.
Okay.
But the problem is, if it's not being projected effectively, it's just absolutely going to go nowhere. Female voices are softer voices. We have to work a bit harder in making sure that we project our voice. When I project my voice, what I do is I set a goal for the back of wherever it is that I'm speaking to. Can you hear me back there? Hello? Even in a big auditorium of 200 people, I rarely use a microphone.
Goodness grave. Holla.
How you project your voice in a large audience like that is to use the diaphragm. That's the muscle down around your stomach area. And you have to learn to do that. That's what opera singers do. If you look at a typical sort of pop singer, they just sing in the range from the voice box. They don't go beyond that. Another thing to think about as well is that if you know that you're a naturally soft-spoken person, just pretend for a bit that you're shouting, because a naturally soft-spoken person shouting is probably the same level as the voice that I'm actually using right now. The reality is that your head is just not used to hearing yourself speak that loudly. Keep your voice loud. Make sure you can be heard. You also have to remember to speak very slowly. When you're nervous, time has this way of warping itself inside your head. You may be speaking extremely quickly, but inside your head, you sound absolutely fine. And that disconnect is what the problem is.
Maybe we'll move on to Mexican beef and minute rice and chicken amadine.
If you have ever played a musical instrument or ran a marathon for the first time, one of the biggest downfalls to people that do something like that is that at the very beginning, when they're nervous, they start off too quickly. And then as the piece of music or as the race continues, you've run out of energy by the time that you get to the really tough part.
As we all know, in order to get something done, you gotta do something. In order to do something, we gotta get to work, so let's get to work. Thank you for taking me.
If you start off your speaking nice and slowly, then first of all, that will calm you down, and also too, it will engage your audience and it'll keep them calm.
In fact, I'm very proud to be the first Pashtun, the first Pakistani, and the youngest person to receive this award.
When I first started out as a litigator, you can appreciate that probably the most nerve-wracking part of a whole trial situation is the very end when you're making a submission to the jury. When I started doing that, I would have one piece of paper on the podium with a few notes written down of points that I want to make to them. But then on the podium, right beside that, I had a piece of paper with 2 words on it, and all the words said were, slow down. And as I spoke to the audience, in that case a jury, I would always have those 2 big words in the corner of my eye as a continual physical reminder to keep speaking slowly.
To begin with, this case should never have come to trial. The state has not produced one iota of medical evidence.
And once you start off speaking slowly and speaking calmly, the rest of your speaking is going to be that much more profound.
I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat.
Avoid the monotone voice.
It feels slightly different to last year.
Again, some people are quite self-aware, and I've met people that are very conscious of the fact that they have a monotone voice.
My name is Peter, and I have a monotone voice.
Listen to what other people do. Listen to the natural way that a sentence is formed. If you feel that you have a monotone voice, then exaggerate how you emphasize things in a sentence. Again, in your head, that's going to sound really strange to you. But if you videotape yourself, then you'll find that actually that sounds absolutely fine.
Effort to alleviate the effects of the... Anyone?
Try to think of a very simplistic sentence where you would add emotion into it.
A classic Grand Prix, but the track has been changed dramatically in 2011.
Now, of course, when you're practicing with your voice and you're trying to get these inflections right, don't go overboard, because that's going to sound really weird.
Their entrails cut out and burn.
Smoked yellow pie. Hi, guys! Obviously, you have a tendency to overreact!
There's only a handful of people that really are natural orators. Remember, you're not seeing them on the first day that they did that. You're seeing them once they have practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced.
Wherever that abides in the human being, there is the nobleness of the human spirit.
So thanks very much for joining me on the second installment on how to be an effective public speaker. Bye now.
Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain I rise. A black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise.